In this video, we'll learn about how to read a word problem and translate it into equations and symbols. Here are some basic principles for how to approach a word problem. The key to solving most word problems is to translate the words that you see into equations or numerical expressions. Once you have those correct equations, you can use your skills from algebra to solve that problem. One advantage that we have when working on a word problem is that when we get to a final answer, we can use the story of the word problem to make sure that our answer actually makes sense. Here's our first example. Jen has 20 more apps on her phone than Ben. If Ben has 50 apps, then how many apps does Jen have? The first sentence here gives us a relationship between the number of apps that Jen has and the number of apps that Ben has. So the part here that says 20 more apps than Ben, if we call the number of apps that Ben has, maybe we'll call that capital B, then 20 more than Ben is simply 20 plus B. Now the problem tells us that that's how many apps that Jen has. So if we call capital J the number of apps that Jen has, then we see that J equals 20 plus B. All right, now when we read the second sentence, we see that Ben has 50 apps. So that tells us that B is 50. So we can take that value for B and substitute it into our equation. We get that J equals 20 plus 50, or in other words, 70 apps. All right, let's do another one. Now we have Olivia's math textbook costs 3 times as much as her Spanish textbook. So the number here, the variable, isn't going to be the math textbook, but it's going to be the cost of the math textbook, and we'll call that M for math. And then again, we have the cost of the Spanish textbook, we'll call that S for Spanish. And what we're told here is that the math textbook costs 3 times as much as the Spanish textbook. So 3 times S, that's 3 times as much as the Spanish textbook. And the problem tells us that that is how much the math textbook costs, so M is 3 times the Spanish textbook. And now when we read the second sentence, the Spanish textbook costs $40, so S is 40. And just like in the previous example, now we can take that value for 40 and plug it in for S. So M equals 3 times 40, which works out to be 120, and in this case the units are dollars. All right, one more example. Vivian runs an auto repair shop. For a particular repair, she charged $56 per hour for labor, plus $195 for parts. If the repair job took 2.5 hours, how much was the total bill? So in this case, we're told that the repair charged labor plus parts. So the repair, the cost of the total bill was the labor cost plus the parts cost. Now we know the parts was $195. They tell us that right away. What about the labor? Well, it was $56 per hour. And we're going to see this a lot. Whenever you see something per something else, that's a rate. So dollars per hour. So for each of the hours that the job took, we charge $56. And so to figure out the total cost, we're going to multiply the number of hours, the hourly rate, $56 per hour, times the number of hours, which in this case was 2.5. So 56 times 2.5 hours, and I'll write that as 2.5. That's going to give us the total cost for labor. Now we just have some calculations to do. 56 times 2.5 works out to be 140, and then 140 plus 195 works out to be 335. So the answer to our question is $335.